There is a new question sitting quietly in the back of millions of minds. Not, am I good enough? Not, am I successful enough? Not even, am I working hard enough? But something colder, am I still needed? This is the strange psychological wound of the AI age. Artificial intelligence did not simply arrive as a tool. It arrived as a mirror. And in that mirror, many people are seeing something deeply uncomfortable, a version of themselves that can be copied, accelerated, automated, or replaced. A writer watches AI produce paragraphs in seconds. A designer watches AI generate images in minutes. A programmer watches code appear before the coffee has even finished doing whatever coffee spiritually does. A student wonders whether the career they are studying for will exist by the time they graduate. A worker opens another article about automation, layoffs, AI tools, and the future of work, and feels a small, ancient animal inside the chest begin pacing. The fear is not only that AI will replace jobs, the fear is that AI will replace proof. Proof that we are skilled. Proof that we are useful. Proof that years of effort meant something. Proof that the thing we learned to do still has value. According to Pew Research Center, many workers are more worried than hopeful about the future use of AI in the workplace, and a significant share believe it may lead to fewer job opportunities for them over time. The World Economic Forum has also described AI and automation as major forces reshaping jobs and skills between now and 2030. So no, you are not imagining the tension. AI anxiety is real, but the deepest question may not be, will AI take my job? The deeper question is, what happens to a human being when usefulness becomes unstable? Every generation has faced technology that changed work. Machines replaced muscle. Factories changed craft. Computers changed offices. The internet changed communication, business, shopping, dating, news, and the ancient human art of pretending to be busy. So people say, this has happened before. And they are right. But they are also missing something. AI feels different because it does not only compete with the body. It appears to compete with the mind. It writes, it summarizes, it designs, it translates, it analyzes, it answers questions, it makes music, images, code, lesson plans, business ideas, legal drafts, marketing campaigns, and suspiciously confident nonsense in a tone usually reserved for airport consultants. For a long time, many people believed mental work was safe. Maybe machines could lift boxes, scan groceries, or assemble parts. But surely creativity was safe. Language was safe. Judgment was safe. Education was safe. Taste was safe. Then AI arrived and began walking directly into the rooms people thought were protected. This is why the fear feels personal. A machine that replaces physical labor threatens income. A machine that imitates thought threatens identity. If you built your sense of worth around being smart, creative, articulate, efficient, informed, or technically skilled, AI can feel less like a tool and more like an insult. Not because it is conscious, not because it understands, but because the market often does not care whether something understands. The market asks a different question. Can it produce the output cheaply enough? And that is where the anxiety begins. Most people do not fear technology in the abstract. They fear becoming interchangeable, replaceable, a cheaper option, a line item, a role that can be reduced, outsourced, automated, or quietly deleted from a spreadsheet by someone using words like efficiency and strategic restructuring, which is corporate poetry for good luck out there. AI intensifies this fear because it makes many skills feel less rare. If everyone can generate a logo, what happens to the designer? If everyone can produce a draft, what happens to the writer? If everyone can ask a chatbot for code, what happens to the junior developer? If everyone can create a presentation, summarize research, write emails, edit images, and build basic plans, what happens to the person who used to be paid for doing exactly that? This is the psychological problem of commodification. When a skill becomes easier to reproduce, the person who built an identity around that skill may feel devalued. Not because they suddenly became useless, but because the world changed the price tag. And humans are not very good at separating market value from personal value. We say we know our worth is not our productivity. Then Monday arrives, a job market coughs in our direction, and suddenly our self-esteem is wearing a cheap helmet. AI makes this worse because it accelerates the comparison. You are no longer only comparing yourself to other people. You are comparing yourself to a machine that does not sleep, does not panic, does not have rent, does not need encouragement, does not get wrist pain, and does not spend 20 minutes emotionally recovering from a passive-aggressive email. Of course, that feels unfair, because it is not a human contest, and yet many workers feel forced to enter it. A large part of AI anxiety is not knowing what will happen. Will AI replace my job? Will AI make my career irrelevant? Should I learn AI tools? Should I change industries? Should I specialize? Should I become more creative, more technical, more human, more machine-like, more everything? Uncertainty is exhausting because the brain prefers danger it can name. A clear threat can be prepared for. A vague future threat becomes weather. It follows you. It gets into work, sleep, planning, ambition, and the background noise of daily life. This is especially intense for younger people and early career workers. They are not only asking, what job should I get? They are asking, what job will still exist? Research on AI and work increasingly points toward a skills shift. Routine tasks may become more exposed to automation, while hybrid human-AI skills, judgment, communication, leadership, and domain expertise become more important. Recent job posting research also suggests rising demand for AI-related skills and a shift away from some routine task categories. That sounds reasonable on paper, but emotionally, it can feel like being told to rebuild the airplane while it is already in the air. People are tired. They are already adapting to inflation, layoffs, remote work changes, burnout, unstable housing, constant reskilling, and the general modern requirement to be a brand, a worker, a therapist to oneself, and occasionally a functioning mammal. Then AI arrives and says, please reinvent yourself again. Naturally, people are anxious. The problem is not only AI. The problem is that AI has entered a culture where people already felt disposable. AI did not create the feeling that humans are only valuable when they produce. It inherited it. For decades, productivity culture has trained people to treat themselves like machines with personal branding. Optimize your morning, track your habits, monetize your hobbies, measure your sleep, improve your output. Turn your personality into content. Turn your content into income. Turn your income into proof that your personality was worth having. In that world, AI feels terrifying because it is the perfect productivity fantasy. Fast, available, scalable, obedient, always ready, never needing a sick day. Never staring out the window, wondering whether life has become one long spreadsheet with occasional sandwiches. If human worth is measured by output, then humans will eventually lose, because machines are better at being machines. The mistake was trying to become one. This is why AI anxiety can become existential. It exposes a bargain many people made without realizing it. I will be useful enough to be safe. I will be productive enough to be loved. I will be impressive enough to not be discarded. But what happens when usefulness becomes cheap? What happens when productivity is automated? What happens when being impressive is no longer enough? Maybe the crisis is not that AI is becoming more human. Maybe the crisis is that work made humans feel less human first. This is where people often say comforting things like, AI will never replace human creativity. That may be true in a deep sense. But as career advice, it is too vague to be useful. The question is not whether AI can replace humanity. The question is, which parts of work become automated, which parts become assisted, and which parts become more valuable because they remain deeply human. AI can generate, but it does not care. It can imitate style, but it does not have a life behind the style. It can produce language, but it does not know what it costs to say something true. It can detect patterns, but it does not carry responsibility in the moral sense. It can answer, but it cannot be accountable. It can create options, but it cannot decide what matters. This is where human value begins to shift. Not toward doing everything manually. That would be foolish and also deeply boring. But toward judgment, taste, trust, ethics, context, emotional intelligence, embodied experience, responsibility, the ability to sit with another human being and understand not just what they requested, but what they are afraid of. The future may not reward people simply for producing more. It may reward people who know what should be produced, why it matters, what should be refused, and what consequences follow. In an age of infinite output, discernment becomes rare. When anyone can generate anything, taste becomes a form of intelligence, and when machines can imitate competence, trust becomes a premium. The common advice is simple. Learn AI. Use AI tools. Become the person who uses AI, not the person replaced by it. This advice is not wrong. It is just incomplete. Yes, learning AI tools matters. Yes, understanding automation, prompting, workflows, and AI-assisted work can make a person more adaptable. But just learn AI can become another way of blaming individuals for structural uncertainty. Because not everyone has the same time, money, safety, or support to reskill. A burned-out worker with 2 jobs cannot casually become a machine learning strategist between dinner and laundry. A parent caring for children cannot always treat technological disruption as a personal development retreat. A junior worker may be told to gain experience in a world where the entry-level tasks that used to create experience are now being automated. So yes, learn the tools. But do not let anyone convince you that anxiety is a personal failure. AI anxiety is not laziness. It is what happens when the ground moves and people are told to dance elegantly. A healthier response has 2 parts. One is practical. Learn enough AI to understand how it affects your field. Study the parts of your work that are routine and the parts that require judgment. Build skills that travel. Communication, critical thinking, strategy, emotional intelligence, domain knowledge, ethical reasoning, and the ability to work with technology without becoming spiritually absorbed by it. The second part is psychological. Stop building your entire identity on being irreplaceable, because no job title can carry that much weight. The most dangerous effect of AI anxiety is not simply fear of job loss. It is the quiet belief that if your work can be replaced, then you can be replaced. This is false. Understandable, but false. A task can be automated. A role can change. A skill can lose market value. A profession can be disrupted. But a human life is not a task list. You are not your email speed. You are not your typing output. You are not your job description. You are not the market's current opinion of your usefulness. You are not a productivity node with childhood memories. And if that sounds obvious, notice how rarely modern life behaves as if it is true. We built a world that asks people again and again, what do you do? How much do you earn? How productive are you? How quickly can you adapt? How efficiently can you remain valuable? AI did not invent those questions. It just made them louder. And maybe this is the strange gift hidden inside the anxiety. AI forces us to ask what human value means when productivity is no longer enough. If a machine can produce, then maybe we must stop worshipping production. If a machine can generate, maybe we must remember how to choose. If a machine can imitate intelligence, maybe we must deepen wisdom. If a machine can answer quickly, maybe slowness becomes a kind of resistance. Not slow because we are incapable. Slow because something should not be rushed. Grief, love, judgment, meaning, trust, a life. AI may change work. It already is changing work. Some jobs will shrink, some will grow, some will transform beyond recognition. And anyone pretending to know exactly how this ends is either selling something, fundraising, or wearing the confident expression of a man who has never had to update a printed driver. But this much is clear. The future will not only test our skills, it will test our sense of self. If your worth depends entirely on being useful, AI will terrify you. If your identity depends entirely on being productive, automation will feel like an existential threat. If your value depends on always being ahead, every new tool will feel like a predator. So perhaps the work is double. Learn. Adapt. Pay attention. Do not hide from the future, but also refuse the old lie that your humanity must justify itself in economic terms. You're allowed to become skilled without becoming a machine. You're allowed to use AI without surrendering your judgment. You're allowed to be ambitious without being spiritually outsourced. You are allowed to exist beyond your usefulness. Because the question is not only whether AI will replace jobs. The question is whether we will let a culture of replacement convince human beings that they were only ever valuable as functions. And maybe the most important skill in the age of artificial intelligence is not prompting, not coding, not optimization. Maybe it is remembering what cannot be automated without being destroyed. Attention, meaning, care, responsibility, taste, presence. A mind that has lived. A soul, if we may still use such an unfashionable word, that refuses to become a spreadsheet. If this essay helped you think more clearly about AI anxiety, work, and the future of being human, subscribe to Atlas of Becoming. This channel is a quiet place for essays on psychology, modern life, attention, technology, self-trust, and the slow process of becoming harder to replace by becoming more deeply yourself. Not through panic, not through performance, but through understanding.